Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful guests. Today we're joined by Arcel Blume, who is the Director of Cultural Competency for the County of Santa Clara. We're going to learn a lot today and have a great show. And Arcel, I want to thank you for being on Democratic Television.
Steve, thank you for this opportunity.
Cultural competency could mean so many different things. And I'm not going to ask you about it right now. I'm going to ask you about you. So where are you from? Where did you grow up? Interesting hobbies or things you can share about yourself?
Well, I'm from Mexico. I was born there, and my parents moved to California when I was just about a year old. So I'm a daughter of immigrants, and I'm an immigrant myself. Grew up being an English as a second language student.
Oh.
Yes. So I did the ESL curriculum through elementary school.
Whereabouts did you live when you first came?
We lived in Southern California, so I'm from the LA area.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until graduate school that I moved outside of that area. But my family's still there.
Your family's still down in LA area?
Mm-hmm.
So what kinds of things were you interested in as a student? What were the subjects that mattered the most, or what were the causes that interested you?
I think once I started college, I think it's learning more about human behavior and what shapes it. It's really what interested me in my education.
And what, explain a little bit about your education, because you have a fairly advanced degree, and I assume you find that useful in your work.
Yes, I guess the way to explain my education, being a person that comes from an immigrant population, and most families want their kids to reach higher education. The tricky thing is the differentiation across families is knowing how to support your child to achieve that vision. And sometimes the vision is there, but not the specifics. So I kind of just landed in a doctorate program. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about through this, through my, I guess, progress is like this concept of future orientation. And some people are future oriented, and they're very planful, and they can set goals and achieve those goals. I wasn't very future oriented. So I just, went to college. People saw that I had some potential in some areas, encouraged me to do more research-based work while I was in undergraduate school, and did that, participated in more research-focused activities, and through that process, applied to doctorate programs. I had not envisioned myself going to a doctorate program at all, but it was part of that curriculum that I was in. And it was an opportunity, I forget, it's called MARC, it's an opportunity to provide access to more research-focused careers for students of color. And somehow, so I applied, had no real idea. I knew of the doctorate program because, my professors had PhDs, but I had never envisioned myself doing that.
Oh.
And so did that, and linking it back to future orientation, I think in my current work, in supporting children of color, right, so that they don't enter our systems, is, for those students for those young people that are future oriented, it's almost a protective factor. But when you're not future oriented and you don't have the parents that can support your path to higher education, even just college, then you're sort of at a disadvantage. And for kids that come from more affluent families who are more educated, they don't even have to be future oriented. The path is going to be there for them.
Things just unfold for them.
Things just unfold for them, yes.
So you grew up maybe without that path in place and had people, professors, teachers in high school, middle school that saw potential in you.
Yes, yeah. And it's not that my parents did not set that, they set the vision, just not the specifics around it.
Mm-hmm. Were there any activities in school that caused you to say, I want to be involved in something larger, I want to be supportive of other folks that are immigrating to the United States, or is other challenges that people of color went through?
I think the one thing that I can speak to is, for me, really my interest has always been more about human behavior and what shapes it. What is the potential within the individual? But even within that potential, the environment has a lot to do in supporting a good outcomes for people, right? So it's just like our children in our schools. They come with a certain potential, but also the school can enhance that potential, or increase the potential of those that may not have that initial skill. One of the things in terms of giving back to the community, when I was in in graduate school, one of my advisors left the university right as I was going to start working on my doctorate. And I had to find a new professor, and she took me on, even though I was added, work for her. Dr. Nan Crowder at Penn State, and my previous advisor, Lynn Vernon Fagans and Betsy Manlove, were very supportive. But I needed, to find, and Nan Crowder took me in. And she said, that I would one day do this to other students to support them. She was thinking that I would go the academic route. Oh. Yeah. So, and I really hold that in my heart with me as I do my work, and really be able to support other people in carrying out good work. And anything that I can do to coach and support and educate is something that I strive to do.
So let me bring this back to the personal. You're a mother, you have young children. Do you find yourself parenting with some of that in mind?
Oh, surely. In terms of my education and my is that what you mean? Yeah. Oh, yes. My degree was in human development and family studies.
Oh, okay.
So I learned about normal, human development, and it's also much of what I've read around, how do you support children, and also my work now in terms of cultural competency and, the work that we're doing, the model that we're carrying out in our county around just culture. And all of these teachings and learnings do inform how I rear, our children at home.
So that's I think that's a positive sign that there are things that we can learn, that we can instill in our kids and help them along their path, including the path to become good members of the community, strong supporters of justice for all, and things like that.
Yes, one of the most beautiful things, I cannot take credit for this, but one of the most beautiful things that my daughter has said was in reference to bad people. And she says, I love all people, and my son, Andrew, piped it, but not bad people. And Catherine, who is, she must have been 6 at the time, she said, yes, Andrew, all people, because everybody deserves a chance. So I thought that was just a very, beautiful statement that speaks to her. She has a very young heart, but, just the idea and the concept, right? And it's the work that we're doing, that we all can become better people.
I guess that kind of summarizes it. But before we get into a summary, you are the director of the Office of Cultural Competency in the County of Santa Clara. What does that mean? What does the Office of Cultural Competency do or look into? And
so the office, is my understanding, was mainly formed to address the issues of disproportionality that we find in our child welfare and in our juvenile justice system. One of the things that we find is that compared to their proportions, African ancestry and Latino children are overrepresented in our systems. And how do we address that? And the child welfare system, DFCS, and probation have been working at it for a very long time, and they've implemented lots of good changes. They are very committed to addressing these issues. But I think there was a recognition by our leadership that we need to kind of step outside of these systems and look at it from a more holistic perspective instead of within a system. Because I think the systems have done what they can, and they continue to grow and really implement very appropriate services and linkages in trying to support children and the family in comprehensive ways. So, you know, the main around the issue of disproportionality is how do we work together with our community partners and stakeholders to develop solutions, right, that can start to make a dent on that disproportionality that we've observed for over decades, actually. And so I've been working very closely with the Probation Department and the Department of Family and Children's Services.
Are those examples of some of the partners you work with?
They are examples, yes, and also with our community partners and stakeholders, and also, you know, how do we bring in the family voice, and it's more just on their voice and the, you know, youth voice into this work. How do we develop strategies that are indeed what the community wants and needs?
That definition makes your office and your work sound very central to making us sort of a more perfect county in a way, to make sure everybody's voices are heard, dealing with issues that may drive folks to make choices that are bad choices, and hopefully give them mentors and other opportunities to make good choices.
Yes. And it's aligned, you know, with the vision of the county. It's, you know, the county has this model around just culture, which really says, you know, we need to create open space so that we can identify what is not working and feel safe that we can contribute to that discussion to make improvements. So now it's taking it out and saying, in terms of the cultural competency is maybe at times not the best term. You know, there's more around cultural humility, which, you know, speaks to the fact that we should be committed to learning, to a lifelong learning path, right? That we can never understand a culture or a group of people or an individual fully. You know, we need to ask questions.
That sounds like such a central point. Cultural humility means I shouldn't judge others based on my assumptions, superficial assumptions, and that's something that you guys are trying to break down.
Yes, it's to be more self-reflective, you know, to ask questions, to better understand the community and the family with whom we're working.
Well, after that definition, I think we're going to take a little break. When we come back, lots more to discuss. We'll be back with Arcel in just a bit.
Hi, I'm State Senator Bob Wieckowski, and I enjoy representing each of you in the California State Senate. I've introduced a packet of bills, which we're calling the Economic Equality and Financial Stability Bills. California and the Democratic Party is committed to solving income inequality. These are the values that we have. This packet of bills, when placed into law, will allow people to retain a little more money if their wages are being garnished, if they're faced with bankruptcy, retain some assets, and also have the chance to go into court if they have a faulty judgment against them. These are the values that we have, trying to lift up those who are less fortunate. There are too many children in California that don't have enough to eat, and they're living in poverty. We all need to work together, but I need your help. The Democratic Party needs your help. We need you to come in and help us out. My office is open. Everyone's office in the Democratic Party is open for you. Let's try to fix this problem together. Let's try to help out those who are less fortunate than us. Again, this is Bob Wieckowski, and thank you for helping.
Welcome back to Democratic Television, and our guest, Dr. Arcel Blume, the Director of the Office of Cultural Competency in the County of Santa Clara. That's a mouthful.
It is.
Anyway, we were talking about, frankly, I think the importance of the work, the fact that having people understand that not everybody is like us, that we all have differences, and yet we all have a lot of commonality, is maybe central to your work. And if we can better understand where people are coming from, we might be able to help them and have positive change come in our community.
That's right, you know, and you saying, you know, summarizing it that way also makes me think of, you know, a new way of looking at these issues, because a lot of the times we talk about equality, but equity is a little bit different. You know, equity is not only just finding the common ground around people, that's more around the cultural sensitivity or trying to connect with people. in a way that is, inclusive. But equity speaks to the variations that some groups experience in achieving certain resources or outcomes. And as a groups, we differ. So equity says, how do we support those groups that are not receiving the advantages that others may be receiving?
And what are some examples of that would help make that point?
Well, there's a great visual, and maybe I can illustrate it verbally. But there's this visual of this fence, and if you can see over it, you can see a baseball game going.
Oh.
And equality says that anybody can go and look over the fence. That's equality. So nobody is excluded from that opportunity to look over the fence. However, I'm estimating that you are taller than I am. And so if the fence is of a certain height, you might be able to peek over the fence, but I may not. So equity says, let's have some stools available, some step stools, so that people that may not be of a certain height can reach over and see. And that's equity. So it's providing some supports so that we can all have that opportunity.
Got it. So you have a mission statement and sort of values that you're driven by. How is the work accomplished? How are you directed? Is there a committee of folks, of stakeholders?
So that work in terms of the mission and our values and our guiding principles, that was developed by my predecessor, Dr. Miguel Hilario. So the office is still fairly new, and it's gone through 2 directors. I'm the second one. And my predecessor worked very closely with the community and also with system partners to develop the mission and the values that are guiding this work. Also what stemmed from that work is this need for having a meeting where community could be very involved in developing priorities for this work. So he was not able to launch that committee or that advisory council, but I was able to. I have a small staff we're a team of 3.
3?
3, yes. Don Long and Jesse Ferguson.
Yeah.
Thank you. Who are part of my team. We're small but mighty, and together we were able to launch the office in addition with other system partners and community partners.
So what direction have you gotten so far? Are you trying to bring in more players? Are you trying to find job opportunities, mentor things, or what's the focus? So
the focus for the advisory council that we launched in January of 2016, and we meet every other month, is to address systemic barriers. And so right now we're in the process of identifying what are those issues that we want to address. And we're developing a framework, that's going to guide this work to make sure that we understand the barrier, that we're collecting data beforehand to ensure that there is a barrier that affects children of color or any other group, actually. What's really wonderful about this advisory council is that it's taking a very inclusive look at barriers that affect people in our community. So, we're bringing in partners from the LGBTQ community because they face a certain set of concerns and barriers, especially for our children in the child welfare and the juvenile justice system. They're a very small minority, but they are overrepresented in our systems.
Oh, okay. So
there's a big concern. And also, we're bringing in partners from other ethnic groups. We have CARE partners, that's the Council of American and Islamic Relations.
Oh.
We have Native population partners at the table. We have African ancestor, Latino, Asian Pacific Islander. We have faith-based partners that we've invited. And we're also trying to reach out to other systems that are important to the work that we're doing, such as our educational partners and our law enforcement partners. And so together, we're going to be identifying some systemic barriers. Outside of that work through the office, we're also looking at language access. And for this work, I'm working with the Office of Immigrant Relations, Maria Love, who heads that office, we're working together to ensure that the policy that was adopted last year by our Board of Supervisors is really being implemented fully across departments in our county government center.
Again, having an office like this seems very forward-thinking. Do you have counterparts in other counties, either throughout California or across the country, that are working on some of these challenges?
You know, from my understanding, there are not that many offices that are like this, but I did meet a counterpart from Alameda County.
Oh.
So I'm in the process of getting connected with him to really understand more and really put our minds together and learn from him, who's been doing this work for a long time.
Oh, wow. So, you know, to me, as you're talking, I hate to say this, but I keep thinking of the presidential race and the Republican race, where the leading candidate right now, and that could change any day, seems to be picking on people and bullying and speaking to people's fears, and yet get a lot of support for that. Do you have any sense about that informing the work of the office?
Well, it certainly speaks to the need of this cultural humility concept. And also, you know, aside from that, is how do we, you know, one of the tasks of the office is to, and I've been working very closely with the Office of Equal Opportunity, is, you know, how do we, in addition to asking questions, right, and being humble about our understanding of other cultures, but how do we bring value in the diversity that we see in our you know, workforce, in our clients and stakeholders and community partners? You know, there's great diversity, not only ethnic, but also across many other factors. And appreciating what everybody can bring to the table is something that we're trying to identify a process and a mechanism in training and education. But I agree that you know, some candidates you know, show that there's a lack of that.
And it shows there's a lot of work to do. Is it your hope then that there are teaching moments that come out of this? For instance, I know on your committee there are educational partners. It seems to me there would be great opportunity to say what this major candidate is doing is just not right. It's not the American way, if you will, that we are an inclusive country, and yet they seem to be very much wanting to limit who can move ahead and keep everybody else behind.
You know, I believe that this candidate is speaking to some of the fears. So I think what we need to maybe look at is that there is a group of Americans, a group of people in our country who are feeling perhaps disenfranchised.
Left out.
Left out, yes. And they're not seeing progress, I think, in their daily lives and for their families. So I believe they've maybe experienced some setbacks. So I think getting to the root cause, right, of what is going on, and not just looking at this group of people as bringing out the worst in people, but trying to find out what is it that they're fearful, what is it that is missing, in their lives, in their families. Maybe they're not able to see themselves as fully contributing. And I think we need to address more of those root causes.
Well, I think that's a good point, because on the Democratic side, a lot of the themes are about the 1% versus the 99%, and we're told we're in a recovery, and yet a lot of people aren't working at their full potential. Things aren't going well for many, many people, and so you're saying there are things to look at here and not just to blame or scapegoat.
Well, even on the Democratic side, I think, there's a strong group of people that are supporting one of the candidates, right? And I think it's also another group of people that is finding it very challenging to be successful. It's the young people, especially in the Bay Area. So young people who with good degrees, maybe with the exception of the tech industry, right, that we have here in Silicon Valley, but for other professionals who are teachers, who are social workers, who are probation officers, who are entering the field. It's not only do they come out with school loans, right, at high interest rates. And I don't know if, I think maybe the interest rates have been cleared a little bit, but you know, it's really expensive to live in this community. And you know, that's one of the discussions that we continuously also have in many of the meetings that I participate. It's come up in the Intercultural Competency Advisory Council, how in a few years it's going to be prohibitively expensive for our professionals that are working in these fields to support families.
Yeah. That's part of the greatness of the area. People are doing well, but there's also a flip side. Housing, transportation, getting around is just not possible. We have about a minute left. Is there a way for people to either reach you or reach the office if they're interested in this kind of work?
Yeah, they can reach me at my email. It's arcel.blume@ceoseccgov.org.
And if people wanted to reach the Office of Cultural Competency, maybe just Google that.
Yes, Google the Office of Cultural Competency in Santa Clara County, and I think that's probably the easiest way to find a link.
So just in our final seconds, do you feel a sense of optimism about your work, or is it too overwhelming and you and your small and mighty staff? Or?
No, definitely. I feel a great sense of hope. You know, one of the most amazing things about my work and what keeps me charged and just moving forward is that we're not doing it alone. We are a small team, but you know, in order to be successful, we have to work in partnership with others. And in this partnership with other people, there's so many passionate people that care about families, that care about the people of color and people of all backgrounds. And it's through this passion, I think, that keeps every one of us moving.
Great. Well, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website, sccdp.org, and join us. Help make a difference.